Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And we're heading all the way down to Florida, where she is showing off her Figment popcorn bucket. She hasn't sold it yet on eBay. It's still on her shelf. How are you doing today, Christy?
I'm well, Steve. How are you? And isn't that popcorn bucket the cutest?
It is, but you could be sailing on a 7-night fantasy cruise for this if you sold that thing on eBay.
That much. I can't even sail on a 3-night for a child with the pop. I'm going to keep that little bucket on my shelf looking all cute.
Well, it looks good up there, and I wish everybody could see it, but maybe we'll take a picture of it someday and put it up on Facebook so everybody can see it.
Maybe.
All right. Well, let's jump into today's episode. We're going to go back to an old school Disney Cruise Line trip report, and we're going to talk a little very merry time cruise with two of our favorite guests. Rachel's been on the show with us before, and joining her this time is her husband, Nathan. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really glad to be here to relive our vacation because it's already feeling like a distant memory.
I know. You get to that point where you're like, when's the next one coming? And it's not coming fast enough, is it?
Pretty much. I think especially true in pandemic times where every day feels like you're living an entire year. So
pandemic and winter all together rolled in. It's just depression upon depression.
Now, wait a minute. So I know you guys are up in Minnesota, right? Am I correct?
You are correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, we're supposed to feel bad because Christy and the rest of the state of Florida had to scrape their windshields this past week.
Cold. And today, Steve, it's like we're in Portland. Honestly, it's like dreary. It's rainy. There's not a sunshine to be had.
Well, let's keep that cool theme going. We're going to talk a little very merry time cruise today, Christy.
Woohoo!
To jump into it, the last time we had you on, you guys had gone to Mexico on your cruise. This cruise is on the Disney Dream. It's a very merry time cruise out of Port Canaveral. Tell everybody when it left and where did it stop at?
So we left out of Port Canaveral on November 29th. We had our first stop was at Nassau. We did a port adventure there. Our next day was at Castaway Cay. We did not do a port adventure, but we were lucky enough to get a cabana. A family cabana, and that was great.
One advantage, in my opinion, a couple for cruising of pandemic times is that you can get cabanas and the beach is half empty, no matter which way you go. So there are some advantages of cruising in the current ways. That's fantastic about your cabana. So let's start at the beginning. Where did you guys stay before the cruise? Or did you come in the day of the cruise, or what was your plan for that?
Well, we came in a couple days before, and we spent one day at Disney World. We stayed at Caribbean Beach Resort, mostly to try out the Skyliner, and that was fantastic. And we spent the day at Epcot and got to go on Remy. And then we spent one night. We hadn't done this on any of our previous cruises, but we rented a car and drove down to the Cape a day before the cruise and stayed at the Holiday Inn right there on the beach. And that was wonderful. Like I would have traded the Disney World time for more time at that resort. You
guys kind of went sort of driving all over. So with the Disney, and then you sort of, you drive the one way to get to Walt Disney World, and then you drive back, like past the airport to go out to Cape Canaveral. And then you actually drive past the port to get to Cape Canaveral. So it was a little bit of, I guess, back and forth driving, but I guess you got your whole experience in. But so you got to Cape Canaveral in time. Did you enjoy the beach? Did you guys use the beach?
Yeah, we did. They had a nice little nature walk that goes through, I don't know, like the marshland. And we went out there to watch the ships come out. So that was kind of fun because the Fantasy actually, I think it normally leaves on Saturdays, but the Fantasy left on a Sunday. And so we got to watch the Fantasy come by, which was, I got a very nice photo on my phone now of the kids in front of the ship sailing past. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So the Fantasy this last fall was doing, they did an 8-night in there somewhere. And then they kept them Sunday to Sunday so that for Christmas and New Year's, they would actually return on the 26th and the 1st. So people could have I think it's the 1st, but so people could have their New Year's on the ship and their Christmas days on the ship. And so they were just trying to time it. So they altered their schedule, and they should be back in theory to Saturday. I'm not entirely sure, but that's typically where they would lie. Okay. So maybe in the future, you might spend more time at the beach. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that resort, it's vacation club resort, and there's tons of, we didn't use any of the amenities, but so there's plenty left to do. And you could see the ships come in from your room. Like you had a nice view of the canal, and it was amazing.
I think just from a practical sense of it too, our kids are kind of at the age where they're not really tall enough to go on a lot of rides at Disney World. So as a family, we'll have a lot more fun, right? Like on the beach than trying to figure out like, what rides can we go on, and accusations of like one person is ruining everybody else's good time because they're not tall enough, right? Like this whole kid dynamic that you that you get when your kid's bigger.
How many kids do you guys have, and what are their ages again? We should have jumped into that right at the beginning.
Oh yeah. So we have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 3.
What did you do for pre-testing? Where did you guys get the kids tested before the cruise? Since at least some of them would have needed to, well, all of them would have needed to be tested, right?
So the 2 oldest had just gotten their second vaccination, but it wasn't enough time to be considered fully vaccinated. So we went through, what's the company that DCL partners with, Safe Passage?
Mm-hmm.
We went with their option just to do it at the airport. It was a little more expensive, but for me, the convenience of just having those results upload straight to Disney's portal outweighed anything else. So super easy.
I don't think we have talked about that. So you made your appointment ahead of time prior to arriving, and then when you arrived, you just went and got them tested?
Yeah, you go to this shady little room, kind of by the car rental pickup, with 2 very nice ladies, and I think we did the testing ourselves, right?
Yeah, I thought that this was very kind of them. They were like, you don't want your kids being freaked out that a stranger is coming at them with a Q-tip up their nose. So why don't you guys do the swabbing? And then they monitored and made sure that we were doing that nasal swab correctly. And I appreciated that also because our littlest guy actually fell asleep. It's just the reality of traveling with little kids. Yeah. He didn't even wake up.
Wow.
I think was great.
That's awesome. Okay. And so for the listeners, really quick, right now, all children ages 5 and older have to be vaccinated. Or if they have turned 5 within 5 weeks of the cruise, then they have that additional time to get vaccinated. So if they are 5 and 5 weeks, they must be fully vaccinated, which means that they've had more than 2 weeks. I think it's 5 and 6 weeks actually, but more than 2 weeks since their last vaccination shot. And that's as of now. These rules could change at any time. They could become different, but that's as of January 26th, what the rules are. Any child under 5 or not fully vaccinated because it's their birthday right in that time range, they have to get a NAT or PCR test 3 days prior to the cruise.
So let's talk a little bit our cruise planning before you guys went down there, because I guess the spoiler alert is you guys got on the ship. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it. So you guys got the negative test once you got to the port and everything like that. But having kids that are 3, 5, and 7, what were some of and you guys have cruised before, what were some of the things that you guys prepared ahead of time? And then also, were you able to get the kids club dates that you wanted to, or timings?
At least on my side, I didn't try too hard to get reservations at the kids club just because it seemed like a pain in the reservation portal. And with this cruise being so quick, on my end, it was more important to do stuff together. The big problem I had with this cruise, just because of the pandemic, was with the nursery being closed. Because our 3-year-old normally would be eligible for the nursery. You can overlap. A 3-year-old can go either to the nursery or to the club, but he is not potty trained yet. So he wasn't able to go to the club. And the nursery was closed because of the pandemic. And so there was nowhere for him to go. So that was kind of a bummer.
Christy, can you go into the clubs during open house time with somebody that's not potty trained?
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had that option, I guess for people that are in kind of the same situation that you guys are in.
Yeah. And they don't publicize this, but the nice cast member we talked to told us that, if you bring him there and he's wearing underwear, he can go in and you'll just have to get him as soon as he has an accident. But like, they're not going to bar him. He could then come back again at another time. But having not planned on that, we didn't take advantage of that.
Right. It turns out that we didn't bring underwear for our not potty trained child. And we were also, you can buy it on the ship, but like any of those other kind of like convenience things, if you forget it, it's super expensive. So we had a lot of one-on-one time with our 3-year-old because.
So did your older kids end up going into the kids club then, the 3 and 5-year-old? 7 and 5-year-old?
They did. I think not. So I think our previous cruise, our oldest was old enough to go into the kids club. I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but our 3-year-olds are basically never potty trained. So we've only had one cruise where we actually had a kid who was like met all of the conditions to go to the kids club. And I felt like previously she was in the kids club just a ton because she loved it. They did not spend as much time as we would have expected. I think both because it was a little bit challenging to get those times, I think, for our family. But also, I think, right, we've had 2 years now of kids, right? They're distancing from each other and they're wearing masks all the time. And even though we were at what, half capacity for the ship, like our kids were still around way more children than they are used to being around. And so they were a little bit more weary of like being in the kids club because they weren't used to being around that many other people. So that's just kind of the reality, right, of the world that we're living in right now. You're not around humans except for the people that you live with that much.
So they were a little bit nervous going in the clubs. That's totally, I totally understand that. And
just getting peopled out, you know?
Traveling with kids that age, what did you guys learn on your previous cruises? Things that were kind of things that could help you on this cruise for families that may be cruising the first time with smaller kids. Was there any strategies you guys had, things you brought with to help out in the staterooms, things like that?
And it actually wasn't as much of a problem this time, but I feel like in our previous, all the cruises we had taken as a family before this were 7 days. So, being on the ship for longer might make a difference. But for us, it was always really important to have something for them to do at dinner time, just because they'll get bored with that long of a wait. And previously, on the cruise we took before this, they would come and grab our then 5-year-old and take her to the club like midway through dinner, which was helpful.
That occurs during second seating dinner.
Yeah, we were in first seating and they did it for ours too, which was kind of a surprise. Yeah, we weren't expecting it. But it also helped, I think, on this cruise that our wait staff didn't have any other tables in the first seating.
Oh my God.
They were around a lot. And the kids loved them. Like they're probably the favorite people we've met on a cruise. So they helped a lot.
Yeah, in the past, we might get some judgment for this, but in the past, we brought the kids tablets to dinners, and things like that, just to like keep them occupied, right? Because if you're not getting one-on-one attention from your wait staff, it can be long, and they're like, human beings. We get spread thin. So if you're in that boat,
it's vacation
don't
for
feel
everybody.
any shame. Yeah,
right. I would just tell listeners that when possible to bring headphones for the kids so that some of the tables around that might not have their tablets on aren't also listening to a cartoon or something. So
right.
Because just other people or other tables, their families might not want to use a tablet, which obviously every of those answers is fine. But then that way the table that wants it has it and they can just use their headphones with no issues whatsoever. And then the ones that aren't can not have it.
Sorry, the one area I was going to say that I felt like we overplanned a little bit was the pre-testing. I'd heard so many horror stories about how long it can take, how long you're stuck in that parking garage. So we kind of went all out on that part. Like we had tons of snacks in the car. We had tons of drinks. They had the toys and the tablets, and ours was really smooth. It might have been less than 45 minutes all the way through. So we didn't really need all the stuff we brought, but that was just everything before the ship is kind of where I focused all of my planning. And then once I was on the ship, I was happy with whatever happened.
Pretty much.
Well, let's get on the ship. Things are a little bit different now. You come on and they've got the welcome aboard. It's a very maritime cruise. The lobby's all decorated up for Christmas. What was that like for you and your family getting back on board a ship after so long?
It really was wonderful. I guess I would say since we have cruised with kids that are so young, we often miss the sail away party because they're like, the kids are just so exhausted, right? Like it's nap time when it's sail away time. And so at least like for me, it was super cool to have that little party in the lobby, right? Like, right. They announce your name, you walk in and you stand on that golden dot with your family and they have their little dance routine or whatever. So I thought that was really cool. Just with the caveat that I have literally never been to a sail away party before in my life. But otherwise it felt pretty normal. Like I would say I was surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had the dance party and then we went to Cabanas for lunch. And that was pretty, a few changes, right? Like you can't get your own drinks anymore. And that's true across the ship. But otherwise, like kind of just what you're used to. And that was really nice.
Although you can get your own drinks now. And Steve, was it like this for you at the drink station? So at Christmas, we could get our own drinks outside, which is a conversation I had with our head waiter, who was a restaurant manager. And I said, just so you know, when I'm in Cabanas, I have just washed my hands and I can't get my drink. Totally fine. I'm completely fine with that. I don't care who fills up my drink cup. However, when I go outside, there's literally not a hand wipe to be had or a hand sanitizer or even a napkin with which to touch the button that I have to push. No requirement to wash my hands. And I have to get my own drink. And he's like, that is a fantastic point. So I don't know if they did anything about that, but
yeah, that was not the experience we had. They were getting our drinks outdoors as well.
No, that went away. The rules are always changing. So what we talk about too right now when we're recording this episode might be vastly different from what is happening in DCL. So we'll always just try to keep you posted.
So after Cabanas, did you guys head up back to the room, or what did you guys do? Did you guys go up to the pool deck and have a little bit of fun there?
I think our room was ready almost right away when we were done eating. So we kind of just went and had a little downtime. Oh, you know what else we did was the safety drill. And that's nice. You don't have to all crowd into the auditorium with your life jackets and everything. So we did that as well. And then went to our room and just chilled out for a little while, I think, before dinner.
What is your strategy? You've got 3 kids. So you've got the bed up against the door. Then you've got the bed that comes down in the ceiling and then the one below it. How do you decide who's going to sleep on that top bunk?
We rotate through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Works really well.
Has your 3-year-old slept up there?
Well, he did this time, but this was also our first time cruising with a kid who wasn't in a pack and play.
Oh, yeah.
So it was kind of an experiment for us, right? Like, okay, how are we gonna do this? We'll try something and see if it works. And then thankfully it did, right? Like, you never know what's gonna work. But yeah, the rotation went really well.
I have never used that bunk bed yet, not one time. And in fact, on my Royal Caribbean cruise, there's only 3 of us. And the bed from that Independence of the Sea came down. I think we talked about this, Steve, in our live, from above my master bed. Like our bed is where my kid was going to sleep. Like I was going to have him on top of us, basically. So he slept on this couch. We just made up this tiny little couch that just fit him and he put him there. But we have never used one of those bunk beds ever. And yeah, I don't know why. I think I have always maybe worried a little bit about like in the middle of the night, my son having to go to the bathroom and somehow falling, which is stupid. Everybody has done it, but he doesn't always pay attention to what is going on in the middle of the night. So I could see him going to get out of bed and
right, just falling right down,
flopping away.
For those of you who haven't seen it before, those beds are actually really safe. They got a really good rail up there and everything like that. Unless your older brother moves the ladder away in the middle of the night so that the younger brother up there then has issues trying to get down. So anyways, for those of you traveling with kids that are going to deal with that situation, deal with that battle, good luck. I don't have any other advice for you on that other than the rotation. I think Nathan and Rachel, you guys did the right thing there.
Yeah, rotating sounds like a good idea.
Let's turn to the kids clubs. We touched on that just a little bit. Your 2 older ones went. The 3-year-old unfortunately couldn't. We touched on it a little bit. They didn't go as much, but did anything stand out from their time there? Did they talk about any experiences that they had that they were excited about?
So they did do that Pluto sleepover activity. I think that always adds a lot of excitement in our family. So we got the pillowcases, but otherwise, I don't know that we got a ton of reporting back on the kids club itself. Just like, hey, how was it? Yeah, it was awesome.
So right now they're rotating through little sections. So obviously this could change at any time, but they're in little pods and they move around and basically do activities together. So if you did have younger, shy kids that have a hard time sort of figuring out what to do in the kids club, or maybe didn't like, so for our listeners that may have had kids that might not have felt super comfortable because they were younger going to the kids club on their own. Right now, it's kind of a good scenario for those kids that don't have siblings that they're traveling with or a little younger because it's structured. And so for the kids with older kids that might not like that structure, there is the opposite end because it's structured, they might not like it as much. But so just something to keep in mind for our listeners, you currently make one kids club reservation a day. If you choose to online at your 30-day mark, you can make more reservations while you're on the ship. I've actually wrote a blog article about it that you can find at packyourpixiedust.com that goes through and describes how to make additional kids clubs times, even for the same day you already have a kids club reservation. It looks like you can't make it, but you actually just click on the reservation and then you can click through and make additional times. So if you wanted to make additional kids club times, you can do that as long as there is space available. On your 30-day mark, when you go to make your port arrival time, which hopefully Disney changes that rule soon, you will make your kids club reservation at the same time.
At least on my end, I'd say maybe that was one of the reasons we didn't use it as much. Or at least for me, I think I'm pretty tech savvy, but I struggled, not with the app so much as connectivity problems. So
it was bad. It's been bad.
Yeah.
This wasn't the ideal. I mean, we used it a lot more in the 7 nights just because of the length of the cruise, but just being able to drop in is so much more convenient than using the app for that.
Right. I will say the cast members, though, as everywhere on DCL, are super helpful, right? Like if you have to go to the kids club to reserve time, they never make you feel like you're being a pain or anything like that. And it's right. No matter where you're working with kids can be really difficult. So I appreciate that. They never make you feel like you're a bother, even if you can tell that they have an incredible amount of work on their plates. So that's really nice. If you also have kids who are, maybe they don't believe you. If you say, oh no, it's not available, they're also really good sports. If you walk down to the kids club and then if the cast member says, oh no, we don't actually have any time slots available today, they can also have your back in that way as well. And I did that a few times too.
Let's stay with the activities before we always turn to food first, but let's stay with the activities. This is a very maritime cruise. What did you guys have plans or what were you guys hoping to do? Were you hoping to get some Christmas pictures on board? That's what our family did. What were some of the things that you guys experienced as a family and were planning on?
In terms of pictures, I think every cruise before this, we'd always pre-booked the
picture
photo package. And we didn't this time just because we kept hearing so many conflicting things about the pictures. You'd have to have your masks on or, they weren't as available as they had been in the past. It just seemed like too much of a hassle. And with that length of cruise, it just didn't seem worth the cost. So we didn't do any of the photos. I felt like the very merry aspects were really downplayed from our previous cruises. And I don't know how much of that is due to the lack of paper navigators because I wasn't constantly checking the app, but I didn't I never saw Santa. I didn't see, we've done the story time with Mrs. Claus. That was a big hit in our previous cruises. We didn't see that. I mean, the decorations were nice, but it felt really subdued compared to previous maritime cruises. I don't know how much of that is due to the 4-day versus 7. There's less time to do stuff, but
they should have had a story time, right, Steve? On your cruise, did they have a story time with Mrs. Claus that
they
would you have remembered?
They were back to back, and it was one time only. It was at noon or something like that on, I think, the day at sea, and so you had to really be on it to be able to do that. So, and to your point, I guess I was expecting there would be a little bit more offered on board, and there really wasn't. So you really had to find it, and it was pretty limited what you did find.
So I think as far as kind of what we planned to do as a family on board was not much, right? We were kind of in a let's go with the flow and see what happens on board while we're there. One thing that I don't know if we planned this in advance. I don't actually remember, but Encanto came to theaters right before we left, and we saw that in the theater there. But thank you. I could not remember the name of the theater there, and that got a lot of mileage with our family. We actually went to see Encanto. I think we saw it a total of 3 times on our 4-night cruise. So that was kind of not Christmassy, but was definitely kind of an unexpected big thing that ended up happening while we were there on board.
Did you guys take in the theatrical shows like Beauty and the Beast or anything like that? Were your kids into anything like that?
Yeah, we saw me and the girls saw Beauty and the Beast. That was really good. I was really impressed with that. I felt like they had, I loved everything on the fantasy, like anything with the genie was a hit with me. But I felt like, I don't know if there are actually any real differences, but I felt like they made better use of the theater itself on the Dream and then Beauty and the Beast. Like there
Well,
were
they had
more
the
like,
screens and stuff, didn't they?
yeah, like more projection type stuff they used. And it was really impressive.
With their projection mapping that they use, they can really turn the scenes quickly. And it's so clear that it really feels like it's actually real. Does that make sense? Like it does look like a real cottage or whatever else that you're looking at, even though it's just projection mapping on a screen. So I totally agree. We loved being able to see Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to the Golden Mickeys. I've always wanted to see that, and they weren't showing that. So that was kind of a disappointment.
Did you guys spend some time up at the pool deck, watch Funnel Vision, or what were some of the other activities you did as a family?
I feel like we ended up kind of separating out a lot. I went with our 7-year-old. I took her swimming, like in the evening after the younger kids were asleep, and coerced her into going on the water slide. Its name is now the Aqueduct. Oh my gosh. Yeah. On the Aqueduct. She was very nervous, but was gracious enough to humor me. And then she had a really fun time doing that. I don't even know where the days went. It felt like it was really difficult to find time to do stuff like going swimming and things like that. So like in the evening when you would go, the kids were also so tired that they just conked right out without going swimming. We spent a lot of time at Vanellope's, I think. It would be fair to say we got a lot of ice cream. That was an activity. I think that's fair to say. Eating ice cream was an activity we did together as a family.
It absolutely is.
Right.
Vanellope's is the little ice cream shop that has an additional charge just for people listening that might not have cruised yet. But so you guys enjoyed that. Did you get any of like the specialty sundaes?
No, we did on the fantasy at what is it, Sweet on You? We got like the Mickey and Minnie bowls. We didn't this time. But I feel like those shops are super underrated. Like I never hear people talking about them, but it is an extra charge, but it's super affordable. Like you get like a bucket full of ice cream for like $3 or something like that. And they have tons of flavors. And I feel bad for those workers though, in Vanellope specifically, because they have an animatronic gumball from Wreck-It Ralph that'll just like spout out lines every once in a while. And I was going nuts from like 3 minutes in that place. I can't imagine having that grumpy animatronic gumball coming at you every 30 seconds for 8 hours or whatever.
Although that did get a lot of mileage with me and Michael. Like a few times he just went into the shop because he would just stand there and stare at the gumdrop and like laugh at all of the lines. So that was fun to just stand there and stare at a gumball machine, listen to a gumball chat at you. I'm with you. As an adult who was working in the shop, that would probably drive me nuts.
Well, it sounds like you guys had a perfect vacation as far as just being able to relax a little bit and not necessarily be scheduled. And with everything you did on the ship, and can you kind of just go with the flow? Christy, you want to go into the food quick?
Yeah.
So now let's talk about dining. Did you guys have a favorite meal during this cruise? Or favorite restaurant? Let's start with that. Favorite restaurant to eat together with?
We ate twice in Animator's Palette. And so that is kind of springing into mind for me. Because although the restaurant itself, I feel like is super fun, but that Turtle Talk with Crush, it's not my favorite.
It's okay.
I know it's a little loud, right? It's just
right.
It's
Well,
loud.
or like when he came to our table, he picked, our 3-year-old Michael. Well, our 3-year-old is like looking all over the place. He's not paying attention to the fact that Crush is going, hey, that dude in the whatever gray shirt or whatever, like, where are you from? Like,
yeah. And a
he didn't
3-year-old
get
doesn't
anything out
know,
of it.
right? Yeah. They don't always know where they're from.
Exactly.
And I'm the only one in our family that's been on the older ships. But, I vastly prefer Animator's Palette on the Magic and the Wonder. And so it's always hard. As much as I love it on the Dream and the Fantasy, they don't compare to the older ships. And so every time I'm there,
Steve's
I'm always,
language here.
Yeah. Every time I'm there, I'm always wishing they did what they had done on the old ships.
It kills me. I'm gonna be controversial. It kills me that that everybody always says that they want to redo Enchanted Gardens, but I wish they would redo Animator's Palette on the Dream and the Fantasy, to be completely honest, because of things like that. I've seen that so many times where it's just like it's almost cringing where Crush is trying to talk to somebody and it's just like it's not working and it's just going on and it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is when he's on and it works, it's great, but I guess I've seen enough where you're just kind of like, oh my god, this is almost like embarrassing. So
yeah.
Right.
New material. Like he always asks, I think every time he asks like how you say hello from Minnesota, it's like it's the same way everyone else says hello.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just say hi.
How was food choices for, you have 7, 5, and 3-year-old? Were the kids able to eat sort of what they would want and what you would want them to eat, things like that?
So I know that I actually appreciate this show a lot for talking about, right, like food challenges. We don't have any allergies in our family, but we do have some texture struggles. And so we're never we try to be pretty chilled out. Like, if food gets in your mouth and we count it as a win, because you never know, right? Like how something's going to feel once you put it in your mouth. The chicken tenders were a big hit for our kids. They had them for every single dinner. Yeah, I think probably ate their weight in chicken tenders every single day we were on the cruise. So that was good. I've had experiences in the past where the servers are like, really, you want chicken tenders again? Like, don't you want to mix it up?
For real?
Yeah. And our 2 servers on this last cruise, they didn't do that at all. They were just like, hey, you guys want chicken tenders? All right. That's awesome. Let's get you your chicken tenders. Like there was none of that other, like, aren't you sure you want something different? No.
Well, if they wanted something different, they would have said something different.
Exactly. Like, no, they just want the tenders and we're going to roll with that.
One thing I noticed, I think I've talked about this in our Patreon chats before. I'm a super picky eater and I'm usually not super impressed with the picky eater offerings on just like the quality of them on the ships. I did think the Dream was way better than the Fantasy in terms of the quality of food you get, especially on the pool deck. But, like for the main dining restaurants, I just about always just get the steak. And that's the one thing that gets on my nerves a little bit is, you order the steak one night, it's fine. And then like night 2, they're trying to convince you to try all these other things. Like, no, I just want the steak. But I always feel like that's one, having only ever cruised on Disney Cruise Line, I feel like if they could improve the quality of their like casual food, that would be nice. I'd appreciate it.
So where did you guys eat your lunches on the cruise typically?
So I think it was a mix between either going to, oh my gosh, the Royal one.
So like the sit down lunch or Cabanas, I think usually.
I don't think we went to Cabanas. We would go to like not Luigi's, but like quick service off the pool. We would do that a lot. And I think for breakfast, we would always go to the sit down breakfast because Nathan is not much of a breakfast eater. So like it's me taking the kids, like sit down is great because then they're bringing you your food.
Yeah.
And I think you talked about this on a recent episode. I was super disappointed. I used to love the donuts they had on the cruise, and they've changed them recently. Like they're a different brand or something. They're just not. I would look forward to this donuts in the weeks leading up to the
It was
cruise.
like a Krispy Kreme, right?
Yeah, it was. And then now it's just like a generic.
Oh.
Yeah, it made me kind of sad.
That is sad.
But I feel like we've recently discovered the benefits of doing the dining room breakfast. It's really nice. I appreciate it.
It's pretty quick, because some people are like, I don't want the dining room because it'll take longer. It's pretty quick. They bring you the food, they bring you your drinks, they bring you your coffee. If you're like me, you love that because you want your coffee right away. Yeah, it doesn't it's not like dinner where it takes an hour and a half. They can really, get you in and out if you want. So we don't get too many people who talk about going to breakfast in the main dining room or even lunch. So this is great.
Well, and I think, I don't know, right? Like when you've got the little kids, right? Like anything that you can do to get people to bring things to you,
right,
is going to make your vacation way better than it would have been otherwise. So then you're, adding kid wrangling in.
Yeah. And you have more
all the other
than
stuff.
hands. So you can't, it's not like you could carry all your kids' meals at one time.
Exactly. exactly. So
I get that.
yeah, would definitely recommend having those sit down meals because they're pretty speedy, and then you don't have to deal with all the carrying, which is great.
Yeah, navigating the kids and trays and food and everything through cabanas. And right now it's not quite as busy, but holy cow, when the ships are like completely full, that's just crazy time up there.
Right.
Well, let's turn to the port adventures. You guys did a port adventure in Nassau. I know one of the things that people have struggled with kids a little bit younger is being able to find something that everybody can do. What did you guys find and what did you guys do?
Yeah, we did the Discover Nassau Harbor Cruise. I think it started out as a land and sea tour, and then I don't know why, if it was due to COVID, they dropped the land portion. So it was just like a cruise around the harbor. I thought that was really good. We saw the tour guides were very excited because we saw a lot more wildlife than I guess they normally do. We saw some dolphins, we saw sea turtles, stingrays, lots of tropical fish.
Yeah, we saw a barracuda. That was really exciting.
Wow.
So was it like a glass bottom boat situation?
No, you just looked out the side.
Oh,
so it was more like a tender type boat, like that you would take to go into like Grand Cayman or something like that. Like it was that style of boat. But yeah, they had alcoholic punch, non-alcoholic punch, so you could have something to drink. And they also came prepared with a ton of loaves of bread. So then when we were on the reef, like the kids could throw bread out to get a good look at the fish, and so that was really fun.
Except our 5-year-old she wouldn't like break it up into chunks. She'd just throw the whole piece in the water and get upset when it's not immediately picked up by a fish. But,
yeah, that was
Take your great white to grab that one out of the water, huh? So how long was the tour?
it wasn't that long.
30 to 45 minutes.
Not too long that the kids would get bored, but enough to keep them busy as far as younger kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was nice. The pickup and drop off was right next to the ship, so you don't have to walk very far if you have mobility challenges, and it was really nice.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that for just a second, because right now in the current times, if you are traveling with somebody who is not vaccinated, then the only fully vaccinated per Disney standards, the only way you can get off the ship is through a port excursion. And so booked directly with the cruise line. And so that's what you guys did. So, and they're keeping everybody in their quote unquote bubble, right? So you like meet in your meeting spot and they walk you to the excursion. Is that what happened?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We met in the theater, I think, and then walked us straight to the boat.
And it was just your, like, the Disney ship of people on that excursion?
Yep.
Yes.
And how many people would you say were there?
Maybe 20, 25, 30-ish.
Yeah, I would say definitely less than 30, more in that 20 to 25 range.
Was there, like, did it feel like there was space to be spaced out, or were you really close to all the other families, or how did that all feel and work?
No, it felt pretty spaced out, and the ship was all open air too. So it felt safe. I can't remember if people were masking. At the start, I think everyone was, and as it moved along, everyone took the masks off. But it felt really safe to me. I was comfortable with it.
Just generally, I feel like people are being a little bit more aware of, like, if you look like you have somebody in your party that is not old enough to be vaccinated, I feel like people are being a lot more thoughtful about the space that they give you. Right, just as like a common courtesy kind of a thing. So I don't think really any time that we had any trouble with like feeling super crowded on the excursion or really anywhere else. So that was nice.
Well, let's get to Castaway Cay then next, your other stop, one of Christy's favorite stops in the world, maybe her favorite stop in the world. And you guys get a cabana this time. Did you get it once you were on board the ship, or did you guys book it before you got on board?
No, so I've been lucky. So I've never done concierge or anything, and I just turned gold on this last cruise. But 2 out of the 4 family cruises that we've had, I got cabanas for. Yeah, you would just check all the time. Like if I'm sitting down for 3 or 4 minutes, I'd check. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I'd check. And I got everything I wanted. Like I got a reservation at the Napoli at Epcot just by checking randomly. But no, it worked out really nicely. And I think what happened is someone in our cruise group actually dropped it, and I was lucky enough to look right after that. So it was perfect.
So having the kids in a cabana, what was that like?
It was good.
Yeah,
it was
really nice.
I'd say the first, if I'm recalling correctly, I think the first time we had a cabana, they even brought us like a pack and play, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, so let the kids nap, which
Yeah, well, we only had one kid then, so
napping didn't happen this time, but it was amazing. All of Castaway kind of seemed deserted, but the cabana area especially was so quiet, and the kids were making friends with our neighbors, and it was great. It was wonderful, and the weather was fantastic. Like the whole cruise, I don't think there was one drop of rain the entire time. So
right, which I don't think has ever happened to us before.
Yeah, like actually, I think I posted the video to the cruise group. The first time we got a cabana, I got trapped in there because of a rainstorm.
I remember that.
Yeah. Which was actually, I loved it because I love the rain. But no, it was amazing.
Yeah,
I did discover. I don't know if this is much of a secret, but I didn't realize there's like a control panel on the wall of your cabana where you can change the music you have going on in there from like just regular island music to what was like spa music, and that was kind of fun to mess around. I don't know if I'm supposed to touch it, but
No, you're fine.
I was playing with it anyway. So
You can also like push a button and have a cabana host come over too, if you wanted to order a beverage.
Yeah.
that was a little. I don't know if this was a pandemic thing. I thought we saw way less of our cabana hosts than we had the previous time, and there was just less people. I feel like there was people all over the place selling drinks and stuff. There was a lot less of that this time. So, which I mean, it's kind of nice. You get more time to relax and what have you.
What did your kids do while they were? Did you guys spend mostly the time down at the beach and splashing around in the water? Or what did you guys do?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. It's always interesting for me to every time you go there, like especially in the cabana area, to see how much it's changed with the tides and stuff. Like sometimes there's that sandbar that kind of cuts it in half. That was all underwater this time. So we spent a lot of time floating around. The kids got a kick out of the fact that all the kids were on like a big floaty, and I was like pulling them along and ended up brushing against like a reef and scraping up my back. And my 7-year-old thought that was hilarious.
It was not.
It was not hilarious. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I appreciate that area of Castaway as well because there's so much of it that's shallow that the kids you can get pretty far out and still just be up to like your waist in water, and so that's like the ideal place to play, I think, if you have young kids. And you're lucky enough to get a cabana.
I also appreciate though how close the cabanas are to the beach because our 3-year-old really loved the idea of going into the ocean, but then like he gets his toes in the water and he's like, oh, it's too cold. It's too cold. So it was easy for him to like play on the beach and still keep an eye on our other kids in the water, just for something a little bit more relaxed. Like it's a contained enough space that everybody can kind of do what they want without you like losing track of everybody. And that's really nice.
And they do provide beach toys, like a bucket of beach toys, which is nice, with like different sand shapes or sand castles and stuff. And that was a lot of fun. They got a lot of use out of that.
One of the good things about you guys' cruises after, 2 busy days, you get that day at sea to kind of relax before you have to get off the ship. Anything stand out on that last day that you guys did?
For me, that was the day where I got the most enjoyment out of my balcony. I feel like you're just so busy those other days. I worried that this was my first time since I was a kid doing a 4-night. I was worried it was going to feel too short. And I think it would have without that last day at sea because you're so busy on the Castaway Day and NASA. So just having the time, a whole day to do whatever you want was kind of nice. Get some shopping done.
Yeah, you did bingo, I think, with Elizabeth. And that was fun. And just kind of a random activity.
Yeah, we never done bingo before. And I did not win, but we did win the raffle. So I got like a backpack full of stuff. It was kind of fun. But I think we'd go back and do that again. One thing I really appreciate though is the new method for booking a placeholder. Not having to wait in line and go to that desk was a big plus. They
actually had somebody sitting at the desk for a short time while I was on on our cruise. So I think they're starting to maybe slowly work back towards that. But to your point, yeah, with the placeholder, it's awesome. Just do it on the app. I did it, I think, like the first day when we got on board, so I didn't even have to worry about it. But I'm with you. I totally appreciate that. Well, unfortunately, as all things happen, you guys' cruise comes to an end. Anything stand out as far as disembarkation goes? And then did you guys head straight back to Minnesota, or did you stay another day down in Florida?
Yeah. So with disembarkation, one thing we did, which I would recommend, well, it was nice this was the first time we rented a car. So I felt like we had a lot more freedom as to when we got off the ship. So one of the things we did is we asked, I think on like our second night, we asked about switching our disembarkation breakfast to the later seating. And I don't know if they'd be able to accommodate that all the time when it's full, but this time they could. And that was really nice because then we got to sleep in a little bit. And then we even opted this time we carried our own bags off the ship. We didn't do any of since we weren't using Disney transfers. And I've actually never seen an easier disembarkation. Like I felt like we did something wrong when we got to customs. Like they looked at our passports, I think, for 5 seconds and we were off. Like there was no forms, there was nothing. And I don't know if that's something to do with the length of the cruise, but it's never been so easy.
They've streamlined that for whatever reason. I don't know. They must have the customs list ahead of time. And it's, very easy. No forms unless you're buying things that cost more than like $10,000 or something. So it's very nice for everybody. And the breakfast, I have been pretty successful on the times that I have wanted, requesting, even during the before times, during more crowded sailings, to request. I usually wait until towards the end, but to request later, the arriving at 8:30. There's no guarantee that you'll have your original servers, but they are almost always, or 8:15 or whatever time that breakfast starts, but they're almost always willing to accommodate us early folks. I mean, they can't do the whole ship. So we have to, maybe we shouldn't tell this secret. No, DCL podcast listeners, now you're in the know. You can request that time.
I guess one other thing I would say just about the benefits of carrying your own bags off the ship real quick. I feel like in previous cruises, we were so stressed out the night before to get everything packed up by 10 o'clock and get our bags out. Like the trade-off to have to just bring your own bags off the ship, it was fantastic. It was so great to be able to not have that deadline so hard before we had to get everything packed up. So I would definitely, Disney probably doesn't want this. They want you to spend the money, but I would recommend maybe not using their bag check service just because of the reduction in stress from the night before.
Yeah, we love that. That's what we've been doing the last couple of times. And I know Christy and I both highly recommend, if you're sailing out of San Diego, to just walk from the airport now that your kids can drag your bags too.
Nobody
Just go back and forth.
Not one person. You're the only crazy person who walks from the San Diego airport to the San Diego port, Steve.
Oh man, my kids are going to love me when we go there in a couple of months. Okay, but no,
Are
seriously.
you doing that to them? Are you making them walk?
Oh, they're going to walk. We're all walking. It's going to be a nice, glorious walk. A whole family get together.
I hope it
awesome points there. Those are all really good points, Rachel. It definitely takes the stress out being able to take your own bags off the next day. And if you're able to get that later breakfast, that really makes it a lot nicer in the morning as well, to be able to sleep in and not feel like you're rushed to get down there and eating at 7 o'clock in the morning or even earlier. Sometimes it feels like. But as we kind of finish up this show, thinking about this cruise, traveling with younger kids, anything that we haven't talked about, any advice you could give other families traveling with younger kids with Disney Cruise Line?
I don't know how much this will be true in the future, but I'd say, like, if you're worried about cruising in a pandemic, I actually thought, despite it being a shorter cruise, this is my favorite of our family cruises. I don't know, I can point to one specific thing, but it's probably the most fun I've ever had on a cruise before. And, I felt comfortable the whole time. The testing was, while stressful, knowing that your whole trip could be upended by one test result. It was easy. No, I thought it was all really good. I do say if you have kids and you think you're going to be used in the kids club a lot, this is just my experience, but we always stay in that deck 5 to deck 7 range. I feel like that's kind of important because it gets you close enough to the club and close enough to the pool deck that you don't, if you don't want to wait for an elevator. I feel like I've had some friends that are planning, and that's always the advice I give them with kids is stay close to those clubs because you'll be going there a lot.
With the little kids, if you still have kids in diapers, nobody wants to think about this, but get a room with a veranda. Because you've got kids in diapers, you're going to want to open it sometimes. You don't want to be stuck with that. And you don't want to think about it, but that's my big advice. If you have kids in diapers, make sure you can open the window in your room. It's a really big deal.
I'll get advice
That's all
there.
I've got.
Well, it sounds like you guys took advantage of that placeholder. What's next for you and your family?
Yeah, so I think we have 675 days to use our placeholder. So I'm already counting down till our next cruise. But I think we're going, I don't know where we're going. If we're doing 70, I kind of want to get on the Wish, but I'm not sure. But we're going to be going with Rachel's parents who have never cruised before. So that'll be fun. And our first family cruise, we went with my parents, and it's kind of nice having connecting staterooms and joining up your balcony. So I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We had a blast with my parents on this last cruise. It's the second time we got to cruise with them, and the kids, in all honesty, our kids spent a lot of time with grandma and grandpa doing several different things. I know you guys and your family are going to just have a blast. Well, I guess as we finish up, once again, thank you guys so much for coming back on and sharing your experiences. Thanks for all you do through our Patreon program. We really appreciate that as well. And Christy, any final thoughts?
No, I'm just so happy that you guys had such a nice cruise and happy that you were able to come back.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us on the show today. We appreciate it a lot.
Once again, thank you guys for coming back and being part of our show, letting others experience your vacation and trying to help us all cruise a little bit better. And we look forward to bringing you back on after you get off the beautiful, probably Disney Wish this next summer, maybe, or next fall, or maybe next Christmas, because I know you guys like these very maritime cruises. So we look forward to bringing you back then. Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Nathan and Rachel for coming on and sharing their experiences as they sailed with 3 young children aboard the beautiful Disney Dream this past Christmas time. It's always good to have friends back on the show, and we are just so excited to talk to each and every one of you as you guys get back out there sailing with Disney Cruise Line. Well, if you've enjoyed this show and you know others who would enjoy it as well, we sure would appreciate it if you'd pass it on along. It helps us get our show known a little bit better in the Disney cruising, the podcasting community, and just the Disney community in general. Also, if you have time to go over to iTunes and leave us a review, that helps us get the word out and just helps the show grow a little bit better and helps others find it so that they can cruise a little bit smarter and excited to cruise with Disney Cruise Line. As always, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each and every week ad-free. If you'd like to find out more about our Patreon program, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, I think I've said this several times, but spring is coming quickly and spring break is right around the corner for a lot of people. If you're heading out on Disney Cruise Line, headed out with an Adventures by Disney, preparing for that springtime surprise for Run Disney, or just heading down to the parks, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.